All right, everyone. We want to welcome you today to our next event. I'm Rob Dalrymple. I'm a member of the leadership team at the Network of Evangelicals for the Middle East. I'm also the director of Determined Truth. You can learn more about NEME at NEME.network, NEME.network. Today, we have the privilege of listening to Voices Shaped by Grief. In November 2023, just after the terror attack of October 7th, I wrote a blog post on my site at Patheos in which I suggested that, when a parent representing Mothers Against Drunk Driving gives a testimony, we ought to grieve with them and then vow that we will never drink and drive. When a father interrupts your YouTube video crying out for us to put down our phones while driving because his child was killed by someone who was texting and driving, we ought to grieve with them and vow that from that day forward, we will never text and drive. I then noted in the article that when we hear from the Parents Circle Family Forum, which is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization of over 800 bereaved Palestinians and Israelis, all of whom have lost an immediate family member to the ongoing conflict, once again, we ought to grieve with them, and we have to vow to do all that we can to demand an end to the occupation and the violence. So when Palestinian and Israeli family members, each of whom have lost loved ones, join forces to cry out for a just peace, we cannot turn away. Their words carry the weight of empty chairs at the holiday tables, birthdays that will never be celebrated, and dreams that have been cut short. The Parents Circle Family Forum is one of the most profound organizations I have ever encountered. Palestinians and Israelis who, despite their profound grief, have chosen a unique and courageous path to work together for reconciliation, to dialogue, and for peace. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Leila Al-Sheikh and Yonatan Zeigen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having
me. Leila lives in Bethlehem in the West Bank. In 2002, her 6-month-old son, Kusai, died from the lack of timely treatment after being delayed by the IDF. Following her son's death, Leila never thought of revenge, but rather devoted her time and energy to ensuring a better and more peaceful future for her children. Yonatan Zeigen grew up in the kibbutz Be'eri, just outside of Gaza. Yonatan is a social worker. He has a BA in law and MA in clinical social work, and he's a trained mediator. He's the father of 3, and Yonatan was a peace activist in his early 20s and then fell into what he calls a political coma after losing his mother, Vivian Silver, who was herself a renowned peace activist, in the October 7th terror attack. And being heartbroken from the war in general, he decided to dedicate himself to pursue peace and reconciliation between Israelis and Palestinians. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. All right. Leila, let's start with you. Can you tell us more about yourself? And then if you would, could you share also kind of the story, what happened to your son, Kusai, and how that experience has kind of helped shape you and your life and your convictions?
Okay. But first of all, I want to thank you for having me and Yonatan. And hi, Yonatan, how are you? It's been a long time since we've been together. Yeah. So as you said, I was born in Jordan because my family, they are originally from Bethlehem, but they went to Jordan because my father, he was a teacher and he went to teach the children in the refugees camp in Jordan. After that, the war was started in 1967. And during that time, the Israeli government took a decision not to allow the Palestinian to return back. So they lost their citizenship as Palestinian and they become Jordanian. I love Palestine from what I hear from my father. He has thousands of stories about his relative childhood. So for me, it's become like a dream to return back and to visit Palestine. And this dream became true in 1999 after I met my husband. He's originally from Bethlehem and he came for a visit. So we engaged and returned back to Palestine. And I was really so happy because my dream became true. I visit all the places, all the people that my father spoke about. And our happiness become much more when we have our 2 children. The first daughter, and after a year, we have Kusai. So when you become parents, you start to think about their future and what you're going to do with them. And during that time, the second uprising started, and I was really terrified because that was the first time I lived in a situation like that. But I thought that will be for just a few days, but unfortunately, it continued for many, many years. During that time, the Israeli government took a decision to prevented people like me who came from Arab countries to get a Palestinian ID. So that meant I can't go freely from place to place. Most of the time I should stay at home because if they found that I don't have legal paper, they will send me to jail or send me back to Jordan, and I can't see my children again. But I thought that will be just for a few days and everything will go on. But unfortunately, it happened for many, many years. So I told you about the happiness that we have after we have both of our children, but that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002, 4 o'clock in the morning. Because I woke up in very critical condition because at that night the Israeli IDF came to my village and they threw tear gas, and because he's just 6 months old, his lungs couldn't handle that. And the treatment in our village wasn't good enough because I live in a village outside Bethlehem. And when we tried to take him to a hospital inside Bethlehem, the Israeli soldiers prevented us, and they said it's a military zone. The second chance was to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem, but again, they told us that the main road is closed. So the last chance was to take him to Hebron, but we should take a rough and long road between villages. But again, for the third time, an Israeli checkpoint stopped us for more than 4 hours. We tried to talk to them. We tried to beg them. We tried to explain to them that our son should be in a hospital as soon as possible, but they didn't listen. And they stopped us more than 4 hours. And imagine every minute was so important to save his life, but they didn't care about that. So when we arrived at the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life. And if he will stay alive after 48 hours, he will be handicapped. So the two choices was even hard to think about or accept. A few minutes later, they take him to the intensive unit care because his condition became much worse. A few hours later, he passed away. And I remember when the doctor told us that, I felt his word was like a bullet comes to my heart, smash it down for many pieces. I started to cry like crazy, didn't know what to do because as a mother, I should protect my son. I should do everything to help him. But that was the first time in my whole life I feel hopeless. I couldn't do anything to prevent that from happening to my son. Few minutes later, the house was full of people, relatives, neighbors, friends who came to offer their condolence. But for me, I wasn't care about any one of them. I just started to think that maybe this is just a dream. When we return back home, I slept in the car and this is a dream. And tomorrow morning, I will go back again to the hospital and bring him back. But unfortunately, that was the truth. In the middle of the night, I remember I was tired. I slept maybe for 5 minutes. And I have a dream. There's a white dove came and stand on my shoulder and said to me, Mama, don't cry. I'm so happy. I don't understand what that means. I know that he's happy with God. He's just 6 months old. But I didn't understand why he came as a white dove. So after 3 years or during 3 years after his death, my husband, my family started to convince me to have other children, and I refused for more than 3 years. And when one day my doctor asked me, why didn't you want to have other children? I say, why I will have them if I will lose them because of this conflict? They will be part of this cycle of violence, even if I don't want to. But after 3 years, I have another boy. I give him the same name, Qusay, because I didn't want to forget what happened to him. I didn't want to forget any details about that day. Every time I look to his eyes, every time I call his name. We try after this kind of tragedy to live, but the life will never be the same. But after 16 years, I met one of my friends who I didn't saw for a long time. So we started to talk about life, children, everything. And he started to talk to me about an organization that he participated in, and It's the parent circle. And I stopped him and I said to him, are you crazy how you could talk to him about this? You know what happened to my son? He said, because of that, I want to talk to you about it. And he said, I just want to ask you a question. Why until now you didn't tell your other children who came after him about what happened to their brother? I said, because I don't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because if they know, maybe they start to think to take revenge. And I'm not ready to lose another one. I lost one of them, and this is much more than enough for me. And he said to me, but you, at that day, as I remember, you said you will never take revenge. I said, yeah, I will never take revenge because, first of all, I don't know who those soldiers are. I don't know where did they live. And if I will take revenge, I will take it from other innocent people, and I will never let any person be in the same situation that I have. And I can't even harm any person, even if that person I know and he's in front of me. So he said to me, but maybe this will be a good chance for you, not just to protect your children, maybe other families. To be honest, I didn't believe in what he's talking about. And I thought that he imagined it because my whole life I didn't hear about these kind of organization. So he started to convince me every 4 days, 3 days, he called me, we started to talk. And every time he spoke about the parent circle, I take the phone like that away and I don't want to hear any word. One day he invited me to a conference in Bethlehem for the parent circle. And he said, you should come. And I said, yeah, of course, just to make him stop talking about that. That day in the morning, I started to think what kind of excuse that I should tell him because I didn't want to be there. And he called me. He said, get dressed. I'm waiting you in the car. I said, oh my gosh, he will never leave me alone. I should just go there to make him stop talking about it. So when we arrived, there were just Palestinian. We sat, we talked. 5 minutes later, when the Israeli tried to enter that room, I felt something ache in my chest. I can't be with them in the same room. I tried to leave. So we started to argue, me and my friend, about that. Then I saw something amazed me when I saw the Palestinian and the Israeli start to hug each other, kiss each other, laugh with each other, like a family members, not just as a friend. And that was the first time in my whole life I saw something like that. Even when I was in Jordan, the only thing that I was seeing at the TV, how the Israeli IDF killed the Palestinian, beat them, take them to jail, all these things. So I said to myself, oh my God, they are so crazy how they could do that. But I convinced myself to sit because I want to know what's the thing that make them so close to each other like that. So when I heard the Palestinian stories, that was kind of normal thing that I heard all the time. But when the Israelis started to talk about how they lost their beloved ones, I was really touched and moved. That was the first time I looked at them as a human like me. The first time I felt we share the same tears, we share the same pain, even if we had a different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one could understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. So from that day, I decided to participate one of the program to learn much more about the Israeli, because as a Palestinian, I met just soldiers. And even when I met them, I don't have a chance to talk to them. So that the main program in the organization called the Pearl Narrative Project, which have 30%. There's something common between them. We met for 8 times during 3 months to learn, to talk. And this is maybe the first chance for most of us from both sides to have a chance to sit face to face to talk. We went even to Yad Vashem Museum to learn much more about the Holocaust, because many Palestinians, they deny the Holocaust, and they said that they Israeli fake it because they want to justify what they are doing in Palestine. And we even went to visit a Palestinian village was existed before 1948. We have 2 professors, one Palestinian, one Israeli, to speak about the history of the 2 nations. We have many activity. It's not about like comparing, or it's not about telling who's right, who's wrong, who's first, who's second, but it's about understanding, because we don't have just that wall of cement between us. We have walls of unknowing each other, hatred, anger. So this kind of program is to put cracks in those walls to make it down, because we want to know and we want to understand each other. So I remember the first time I met the Israeli, we've been a group of women. So they told us to speak about something happened during the conflict, affect our life. And that was the first time I spoke about what happened to my son. Even between me and my husband, since his death, we didn't speak about him. So that was so hard. Even after 16 years, it's like to open the wound again, bring the memories back, the pain, the anger. And I started to cry, couldn't complete the story. And there's an Israeli woman came forward and she started to apologize. And she said, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my people, I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand the word that you couldn't say. And she came and hugged me. Both of us started to cry. And that was the first time I felt someone really care about me. Someone could understand my pain, even if I didn't say a word. From that day, I decided to be a member of the forum, to start to give lectures at Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And I thought that's it. And I made everything right. But life didn't leave me alone. Like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I can't remember. We've been in Jerusalem, and we were a group of peace activists, and everyone started to talk about his story. And after I spoke about my story, there is a man who stand up, an Israeli man. I know him like 3 years ago. I know what he's doing, but that was the first time I listened to his story. And I saw him all the time look at me and crying. And I thought he just like touched and moved about about my story. But when he started to talk about his personal story, he mentioned that he was a high officer in the army and he served in my area. And then he said that he prevented a Palestinian car which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become real and it's become hard. And because in my whole life, I didn't think that I will meet one of those people, but to be him in front of me, even if he wasn't there in that day, but just to do the same things, it was even hard for me to listen to him. I didn't know what to do or what to say. I started to cry. And one of our friends asked both of us to go outside and speak about what happened in that room. Then he said to me, I know this is hard for you, Layla, to listen to me, but this is so important for me to tell you that part. And then he said after time that his son became sick. And when he tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped him because he wanted to ask him a few questions and he was in a hurry. And then he said to me, then I realized what I did to the Palestinian. He quit from the army. He refused to serve again. They sent him to jail because of that. And after they released him, he established a new organization called Combatant for Peace with ex-Palestinian fighters. They start to work on the ground to end the occupation, to try to make things right as much as they could. So I look at him and I said to him, look, Khin, this is so hard for me to listen to you. But at the same time, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because you didn't hide that part of your story. You have that courage and that honesty to speak in front of me. And now I could tell you that I forgive you. And I felt this is the real reconciliation, because it's so easy to speak about peace and love and all these lovely words. But sometimes I ask myself if I really meant every word I say, or if I meant everything I did. And that day I realized I made everything right. And this is what I want. And this is what I continue doing in my whole life. And I will never stop whatever happened, even in these dark times that we have since the 7th of October until today. Because because from the 7th of October until today, we, as you know, or maybe all the people know what happened in Israel and Gaza, but no one pay attention to the West Bank and what happened here. Since the 7th of October until today, all the people who work inside Israel, they lost their jobs. So the economic situation in the West Bank in the lowest point now. We don't have shelters. Many rockets fell down in the West Bank. We didn't know if from Hamas or Iran, from Yemen, from even the Israeli Iron Dome, because these kind of rockets will never recognize if you are Palestinian or Israeli. Many children, they couldn't go to schools. Even my children, sometimes if they are lucky, they could go just for one day. And the worst part of all of this is the settlers. They attack the Palestinian every day. They burn their houses, their cars. Even if the Palestinian try to defend himself, they will attack him and they will take him to jail or even kill him sometimes. And one of the worst parts, even now, in every entrance of every village and every city, there's a gate, and this gate, it's totally different than the checkpoint, because in the checkpoint there's all the time soldiers. You could talk to them, you could argue with them, maybe sometimes they'll let you in or not. But in this gate, you don't know when they will close it, you don't know when they will open it, and there's no one, even if it's closed, to talk to him. Even if you have urgent case, even if you've been late outside your village, you can't return back. So the situation become worse and worse every day. And I know it's even in Gaza, the starvation now, all the things that Netanyahu talking about now about taking all Gaza, and he even threatened to take most of the parts of the West Bank. But we can't lose hope. We know this will end one day. We don't know how or when, but we can't just sit side and watch and wait. We believe that God created us to love and to live, not to kill each other. And we hope this will happen before we died, because we wish our children and our grandchildren to live a normal life like any other people. We don't know this. We don't want this to continue forever.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That is an incredible story, and you're doing wonderful work. And I'm sure your son would be very proud of what you've done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Jonathan, tell us about yourself, and tell us again, if you would, as well, the story of your mom, Vivian, her life, her work as a peace activist, how you learned about her death on October 7th, and what you've done since, and about your experience with the Parents Circle.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say hello again to Leila. We've been doing these talks and traveling together in the past, and every time we meet, it's on the one hand very enjoyable. I like spending time with Leila and listen to her, and in the same time, every time we meet, we bring our pains forward, and I think this is an embodiment of the concept of the Parent Circle, Families Forum, that if we are able to cry together, then we'll be able to laugh together and build together a new future. So I was born in Israel, but both of my parents were immigrants. My father came from the States, and my mother, Vivian, came from Canada in 1974. As a young idealist, part of a youth movement called Habonim, and they came with a mission, and they reestablished a kibbutz. Not the one I grew up in, a different one. And when I think when I think back on it, it comes to mind that back then in 74, when she came, she didn't have to feel this big gap or clash between her identity as a Zionist woman and a woman that is very much dedicated, believes in equality and social justice and peace. So she immediately became involved in these kinds of works, outside of being very much invested in building this kibbutz, which is a very demanding project. In 1990, I was 2 years old, we moved to kibbutz Be'eri, which is right on the border with Gaza. And I think that with that proximity, it generated a strong sense of responsibility. And she became CEO of an organization that had projects in Gaza, encounter groups and empowerment projects. I remember myself, so I grew up with this concept of Palestinians as colleagues and partners. And I myself went to visit Gaza when I was 12 years old in 2000, before the Second Intifada broke out. And it's very hard to imagine now. I mean, when I was there, it was already unusual. I was the only one out of my peer group to visit, but it was possible. And we walked in the vibrant market and in the boardwalk, sat in the boardwalk. After the Second Intifada broke and it was harder and harder to cooperate and do projects in Gaza, she became more engaged in the Bedouin community, which also surrounds the area of the northern Negev in Israel. And more, that was her life. She was dedicated to those issues of cross-border work and shared society in Israel between Arabs and Jews. And I thought that, that was my background. I thought that would be my path as well. That's how I formed my convictions, my views on political views and on power dynamics. And I also grew up during the 90s, which was very different times in terms of the prospect of an alternative reality. But as I said, after 2000 and the years to come, after Netanyahu became stable in his governance of Israel, the status quo became very much managing the conflict, not trying to solve it, but to manage it. And I started to feel, although I began being an activist in my early 20s, I lived in Jerusalem for a period of time, I began to feel helpless, that it's too big, it's too far, and I can't have impact. And in 2014, my first child was born. Today I have 3. And I started to hold on to this fantasy that I can lead a normal life, raise my child, go to work, without tackling the occupation and the conflict. So I directed my resources to something that I can nourish, like my family, and not to something that I can't impact. My mother never made that shift. She was always dedicated. In 2014, she also retired from her position as the CEO. And I thought for a minute, okay, I had my first child. She's retiring. She's going to be a grandmother. She'll knit sweaters. But it wasn't the case. Protective Edge happened that summer, 2014, which back then was the height of the violence between Israel and Gaza, which now seems so minor. And she immediately became a part of an organization called Women Wage Peace, and she continued volunteering, driving Palestinian patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals and sitting on boards of organizations and initiating projects. It was just a very strong part of her identity. I remember when I used to kind of taunt her in my period of what was mentioned before, what I call my political coma. I would taunt her, oh, you're wasting your time, you're doing fruitless activities. And she would just say, she would nod me off and say, you can continue laughing from your comfortable couch. I'm doing something. And today I can say that I was always kind of envious of her, that she maintained her capacity and her conviction. So, as I said, I was holding on to this fantasy of raising my kids, and all of that changed for me on October 7th. When I woke up, I was supposed to be in Be'eri because it was the holiday, and my partner is also from Be'eri, so we used to spend every holiday there. And this time, for no particular reason, we didn't go. So I woke up in my apartment in Tel Aviv to the sound of sirens, and I didn't pay it much attention because we're accustomed to it. But I tried to continue sleeping. Every few minutes, something signaled to me that that it's unusual this time. So in the end, I woke up and I called her, and I spent about 3 hours being with her on the phone. This is one of my children. I spent time with her on the phone, conversation, and correspondence, and it was this dual experience of, on the one hand, realizing, understanding that this is something very major, and in the same time, not comprehending. And I thought about this myth of Native Americans when the first ships came from Spain back then, and they didn't see them advancing. I don't know if it's true, but it's like a myth because it was out of their imagination. And here in Israel, we grow up with the notion of invisibility. And that we have this magnificent army. And I thought, okay, so this will end in a minute. Another minute, it's gonna finish. Another minute, but another minute passes, and it's not coming to any positive conclusion. At some point, I heard the gunshots were so loud outside of her window through the phone, and I was confused. I told her, what's the protocol? They're shooting outside your window. What's the protocol? Should we continue speaking till the end, or should we say goodbye? And she was smart enough to say, let's say goodbye. And we were able to do that and say words of love and appreciation. And I'm thankful for that, because most of my friends who lost their parents or lost their children didn't have a chance to do that. And we did. I was able to tell her how much she was loved during her life, and how full her life was, and that she could go in peace and with a feeling of fulfillment. And we hung up. She was hiding silently. We wrote, we continued writing to each other until she wrote me that they are inside the house. And I wrote her, I'm with you. She wrote back, I feel you, and that was that. She went silent. So out of that, that was another very strong experience of helplessness. But this time, out of that helplessness, I felt a very strong sense of responsibility, and to become engaged in change, in creating an alternative reality where things like that don't occur on either side, that no one needs to hold his loved one while they are being killed, actively or passively. And it was kind of an immediate before and after effect for me. I quit my job and I started to try and contribute whatever I am able to to shaping our future, our shared future of Israelis and Palestinians. And one of those, one of my main efforts was joining the parent circle, because I thought that they are very much aligned with my realization that we have to transform from two peoples in a violent clash to two peoples in a prolonged, complex reconciliation process. So it's not that 1 minute you're killing each other, the next minute you're hugging, but being a part or inside a reconciliation process, how long it may take, is giving up violence. It's giving up arms, and it's starting to recognize the other as equal in their humanity to you. And it means they are flawed just like you are flawed, and they are wonderful just like you are wonderful. And in that sense, that is like the basic mission of the parent circle, to humanize each other and to be able to become a group not negotiating for resources, but solving a shared problem together. That our shared problem is how to share the land and how to combat violence. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing since October 7th, apart from the Parent Circle. I'm taking part in a lot of different organizations and actions. It's been I can say that in a counterintuitive way, that I became a lot more pacified after October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you are touched so dramatically from violence and death, it can take you on a path of revenge or rage, but it can also spark this realizations that, in my mind at least, I treat trauma and pain as like a substance in the world that has quantity. And if I want less of it in the world, I need to be a part of the effort to lower its quantity in the world. And revenge just is not constructive for that ends. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. We almost need to take a break so people can go get more tissue and come back. Your stories are so powerful, and we thank you so much for sharing them. I'm sure it's hard to share those stories, but we thank you so much. And I just pray that everyone watching, that we learn from this, as we said all along. So one of the problems that's happened in this crisis more and more is that over the last 20 years, a wall has been built separating Israelis from Palestinians. Now young people are growing up on both sides of the wall, not ever knowing anybody on the other side. And because of this, they end up believing only what they're told about the people on the other side and the other. So can you guys speak, maybe briefly to what are some of the common misconceptions that you have learned about people on the other side? Maybe you had them and you've broken them down because of your work with the Parent Circle. Some of the common misconceptions about people on the other side. Leila, why don't you start, since you've been quiet for a few minutes?
Maybe one of the things, I thought that all the Israeli understand what's going on in the West Bank exactly, and they know the history from the Nakba or the catastrophe from 1948. But it seems many of them, they didn't understand anything about that. I remember when we visit that Palestinian village called Lifta in Jerusalem, many Israeli told us that when they've been children, they came to that village and they've been playing, and they've been told that no one lived there. But when they saw the houses empty, they said, but this is houses over there. And they said, yeah, but the people here, they just left it and they go to another place. So they don't understand what even happened to us. And I think even many Palestinians, they didn't know many details about the Israeli, about their culture, about their history even.
Yeah.
And about the trauma that they have.
Right.
But the hardest thing, that when the Israelis start to talk about the Holocaust, the Palestinians, the first thing they all the time said, but it didn't happen because of us. So why, when you have that, you try to do the same things to us?
Right.
I know it's hard sometimes. Sometimes we even struggle with some words like the Zionist. I remember when one of the women in that meeting say, I'm proud, I'm Zionist. All the person said, oh my God, what she's talking about. So then we start to talk about these words. It seems that even the words that we didn't even understand what it means, like even for the Israeli, they struggle with the word shahid. Shahid, it means like a Muslim when he being killed by another one, like let's say by the Israeli, we call it shaheed, but yes, thank you. Shaheed.
Martyr.
Yes. So but the best thing that we have the chance to talk, to sit, to like I will never agree about everything like Jonathan could say, but I will still respect him. I still understand what he's talking about.
Amen.
So this is one of the most important things, to be
Amen.
honest, to listen, to understand. I think this is the keys.
Amen. Jonathan. Jonathan.
I don't think I can say that I had that I learned that I had misconceptions in the political sense, because as I said, I grew up in this environment, but I did, I think, learn to be more present in like multiculturalism, because I'm come with a universalistic attitude, but it's also from a place of privilege. You can be more inclined to universality when you see the world from your standpoint, because you were in power all the time, and so to just the mundane things of spending time together and with a different kind of language, not only a spoken language, but also cultural language and habits and things like that. So I've had interesting experiences being in partnership and traveling together with Palestinians. And not only, also in my world philosophy, not only realizing different etiquettes, but also realizing a position in the world.
Wow. Thank you so much. No, and we can't talk about these tragedies, of course, that you've endured in your involvement in the Parents Circle and the larger peace and justice movements without acknowledging the present war on Gaza and the crisis that's happening today, which of course is very real for you, Jonathan, and what's happened to your family. So what are your thoughts on the present conflict, and what does a just peace look like? And what's a just solution to this? Jonathan, you want to go first?
To me, I think the first step and a necessary step or a base to a just solution to our situation is the concept of equality.
Okay.
I don't think that we ever tried, the Israelis and the Palestinians together, but I'm talking as an Israeli, I don't think we ever tried pursuing this effort from a standpoint of equality. Not during Oslo, not during Geneva or Annapolis, never. And I think that the minute we choose, it's a choice, the minute we choose to enter that room from the standpoint of equality, and when I say equality, it doesn't mean total equity, right? The solutions will always, they will never be, we will never achieve justice. The Palestinians will never be able to receive total justice like any other oppressed people in the world. But when we start treating them as equal in their humanity, as equal in their aspirations, needs, then we will be able to construct the right model to share the land. So in my mind, for example, this present war that became annihilation I thought already on October 8th, I really hope, I knew it was wishful thinking, but I really hope that this is a wake-up call for the Israelis, and we won't enter Gaza. We will run to Abu Mazen and Biden back then and the Egyptians and say, we got it. We got it. We can't live on our sword. We can't live oppressing another people without that blowing up in our faces. We now are willing to offer this and that and this, and we want to do it together with the PA or whatever leadership evolves in Palestine. And we would have gotten a much safer and secure and well-being future since October 7th. In a more practical sense, I think that the minute we will enter that room, a kind of confederacy model would be right for us, but it's like a parallel intellectual effort, because we are facing now, as we speak, an annihilation of another people,
Yeah.
and we are in the same. So we need to stop that, and we need to put our efforts into stopping that, and then stopping the occupation, and in the same time, we need to envision, to have political imagination. Of what is in the future for us, what is the prospect. And I see it. I see what I described before, a confederation or entering the room with equality. I see it as much realistic as our experienced realities now. Because one of my first realizations after October 7th, and I've been using it as a mantra for myself in my mind, is that it's not that we don't want peace because it's complicated. It is complicated because we don't want it yet. So it's a question of will and not a question of plausibility. And that makes it real in my mind. It makes it realistic. It's just a matter of resources and effort and will.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you. Leila, you want to add anything there? You're muted. Okay, thank you.
I think what we are doing is very important, not just for us, but even our message is international message. It's about any kind of violence act, even maybe between siblings at the same house, how to deal with this situation. Some people find it so hard at schools, maybe because we went to many places, not just to meeting. Even we went to church, we went to synagogue, we went to schools, because all these kind of violence could happen anywhere. And we also, some people, especially foreign people, ask us, what do you want from us? So we always said, if you are not part of the solution, please don't be part of the problem. So, because we don't want them even to bring the conflict to their countries. That will never help us. Like if they pro-Palestine or if they pro-Israel, how this could help me or help Jonathan. But what we want from everyone is to pro-peace and to convince their countries to invest all these monies that they spent to send weapons to our country, spend it to find peace and to find projects to do something to help us. By the way, Vivian Silver, Jonathan's mother, she's one of my best friends. We've been together many times. Even we've been in Washington, D.C. together in J Street. And even after her death, they published a photo for me and her. And one of my relatives saw that picture and he said, "Are you crazy? How could you let them publish that photo? Maybe now Hamas will come and like they want to kill you." I said, "So what if they kill Vivian and they want to kill me? So it's okay, because that means that we did a good job and great things, because all the time the people who make the good things have been threatened of killing or something bad happened to them." So we believe in that work and we will never stop. We don't know, as I told you before, we don't know when this will stop. We don't know how, but we believe that we have a great power to make a change. We are not leaders, yes, but we are mothers and fathers. We are families who suffer daily from this occupation. I'm not just talking about the Palestinian, but even about the Israeli, because all of us suffered from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's now the time to find a solution.
Amen. Amen. Hannah, are we going to the top of the hour? Or are we going to 15, or what's our time schedule? I want to respect their time as well.
It's an hour. It's to 2.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So let's go ahead and just come to a conclusion here really quickly here in the last minute that we have. What you kind of already given it, and you've given us so much. This has been unbelievable. What would you want to say to a room full of mostly Westerners, I'm assuming, that are watching this here live? What would you want to say? And mostly Americans. And I think you've already hinted at it, Leila, as well. But what would kind of your words be to us?
Maybe I already said that, but I could say again.
Yeah.
Please, if they could convince your government to support the peace activists, to support our work, to try to end this war, not just to end it. We don't want ceasefire, because if ceasefire will happen, that means another war will happen, and maybe that war will be much even worse than one that we have now. But we should find a solution now. We ask you to help us to try to find that solution, whatever it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there is a recognition to be made by people around the world on their crucial role and accountability. I'm not talking about private people like yourselves, but any conflicts they can start between two sides, but they are always either enabled or resolved with the intervention of third parties. And we have been enjoying the enablement of our situation for so many years, and we need to start enjoying the solutions. So instead of importing our conflict to other countries, we need to see them export solutions to us. And that means economically, in terms of either supporting civil society in Israel and Palestine, but also in the governmental level, to start conditioning aid and investing in constructive mechanisms and divesting from unconstructive mechanisms of violence. And in that sense, when people, so there's the level of actions on the ground, civil society in each country that can spread a message of not pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, but under the banner of peace and humanity. And there's the political mobilization of demanding from political representatives to engage in this conflict in a constructive manner.
Thank you so much. So Hannah has put in the chat, I believe, how to get in contact and how to follow the Parent Circle Family Forum. NEME.network as well to continue to find out more about the work that we're doing at NEME. There's a big conference in Chicago for some of you guys in the United States next month. I encourage you to come to that. But let me close with this. 77 days ago, the Parents Circle Family Forum website said this. It said 600 days of war, 600 days of pain. 600 days have passed since this war began, and the killing continues. The pain persists and the destruction goes on. 600 days in which we've lost our children, our loved ones, our humanity. We at the Parents Circle Family Forum know all too well the meaning of loss. And we also know that there is no other path but the path of peace, mutual recognition, and a return to our shared humanity. Today, we raise our voices loud and clear. Bring everyone home. Stop the killing. Enough with the destruction. It's time to end the war. It's time for life. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Layla and Yonatan, for telling us your stories and sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah, for your work behind the scenes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.